This is Miss Diane from Finkelstein Memorial Library, and this week we're going to be making chocolate chip cookies. So you're going to start off with your dry ingredients first. So in that case, this is 2 1/4 cups of flour. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Now, just like all of the other baking that we've done so far, you want to make sure that you whisk together your dry ingredients first so that they're all evenly distributed so you don't get lumps of baking soda or salt in your mix and everything will rise evenly. All right. Now, onto our cookie dough. We're going to set this aside for a minute and focus on the rest of it. Okay, so you want to start off with butter. In this case, it is 2 sticks of butter, which is a half a pound. And you want to make sure that your butter is soft. Not so soft that it's melting, and not so hard that it's just come out of the fridge. If it's too hard, you're going to ruin your mixer. And if you're doing this by hand, it's impossible. And if you are making it too soft, then you'll end up with butter soup and you won't get the right consistency in your cookie. So this has been laying out for about an hour. It's fine. If you have to microwave it, 10 seconds in the microwave at regular power should do the trick. Okay. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer at home, your regular hand mixer will be fine. If you don't have a hand mixer at home, that's fine too. You can do these. You can do these without a hand or stand mixer, but you want to make at that point your butter a little bit softer than normal, not drippy, but a little bit softer. So maybe 15 seconds in the microwave. Okay, so we're going to cream together the butter and the sugars. So in this case, we have 3/4 of a cup of white sugar, but we're also going to do 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar as well. So when you're measuring brown sugar, you'll almost always see that it's packed in your recipe. So we're going to grab our little 1/4 cup measuring tool. And then I'm just going to use the back of my other measuring cup to pack it down and level it off. So I need 3 of these. And we're good. Okay. All right. So we're going to cream together our butter and sugar. If you are using a stand mixer or a hand mixer, I use this usually on a lower speed, like 2 or 4 rather. Always remember to lock it first. And before you complete this step, remember to preheat your oven to 375. Okay, so we're going to let this go. You'll know it's done when the butter is nice and good and incorporated into your sugar. And there's no big buttery lumps. Okay, that looks pretty good. It doesn't take much. So if you are needing to do this by hand, it's really not that bad. Just make your butter a little bit softer than usual. Like this. Okay. So you're going to grab your spatula at this point and scrape down the sides of the bowl. That's whether you're doing this by hand or by mixer. And the reason for that is even distribution of all of your ingredients. You should scrape down the sides of the bowl at pretty much every opportunity you get. There we go. Good. Okay, next we're going to add, lock that. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 2 eggs, 1 at a time. The eggs should also be room temperature, but if they're fresh out of the fridge, it's not so bad. Okay, and we're going to beat this again on a level 2 or 4, something kind of low. It doesn't take much. Great. Alright, and we're going to let that egg get nice and incorporated in there. Then we're going to scrape down the sides of the bowl again. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we are almost ready to add our dry ingredients back into this. All right. Should look a little like that right now. Great. Alright, so only 2 ingredients left. One is the dry ingredients that we've already mixed up. I always have to do that first. You can, of course, mix all of your dry ingredients together now if you wish. You're going to add this in a little bit at a time. You don't want to dump the entire thing in. For those of you, you'll end up with a huge mess. For those of you who are using a stand mixer or a hand mixer, you just want to do a little bit at a time. Actually, for everyone, you should just do a little bit at a time. But the stand mixer will make a much bigger mess if you dump it all in. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit. Alright, aside from making a giant mess, the reason that you don't want to add everything in at once, even if you're doing this by hand, is because you want to make sure that you're not overdeveloping the gluten. If you put in all of this at once, you're going to be stirring it and stirring it and stirring it and stirring it, and you'll get a not so tender cookie, and that's not what we want. Okay, now I'm adding flour. This time I'm only going to put it on the lowest speed possible. If you want, you can do the entire rest of this just by hand. Alright, it doesn't take much. We are ready for our next round. A little bit more flour, and again, just back on the lowest setting. Okay, this time we're going to scrape down the sides of the bowl because that is important. Great. And we're going to put the rest of this in this time. So about 3 rounds of the dry ingredient mixture. Alright, so the very last thing you want to put in is your chips, or nuts too if you're adding that. So under normal circumstances, you'd be adding 2 cups of chocolate chips, but we are adding mini chips because it's just a preference. All right, so we're gonna add our mini chips in. Again, this part can be done by hand if you prefer. And we're done. Okay, we have our dough. Okay, so now we are ready to put our cookie dough on the cookie sheet. You don't need one of these, guys. 2 teaspoons will work just fine, but I'm in a hurry, so we're gonna use this. Now, this particular baking sheet has little dots all over it to let you know exactly how far apart to space your cookies. You wanna give it around 2-3 inches ish. You should get about 12 of these on a pan, unless you like them gigantic, which is up to you. But we are going to aim for the large round dots. If you don't have a baking sheet, parchment paper is great. If you don't have parchment paper, a greased cookie tin is just fine. So here we go. I said 12, but it looks like I actually do 15 and I never even realized it. So 15 cookies at a time. Either way, this recipe makes roughly 2.5 to 3 dozen, depending upon how big you like your cookies. I like mine fairly small and a little bit more than bite-sized, so your mileage may vary. Now this particular recipe is the original Tollhouse recipe that comes right on the package of most chocolate chip cookies. But there are other really great chocolate chip cookie recipes out there. And if you're interested in what makes different recipes better than others, I highly recommend the Alton Brown Good Eats episode where he shares with you 3 different recipes for chocolate chip cookies. It's amazing. And probably available through the library system when we start circulating materials again. So these are going to go into the oven for roughly 9 to 11 minutes. I have good luck with 9, but it's really going to depend on how large you made your cookies and also if your oven's thermometer is accurate. Okay, so these are fresh out of the oven. I've set up my workspace over here so that I can put my pan down, and I'm also going to put out this towel so that I can rest my cookies on the towel while I'm putting them on the cooling rack. The reason I have them on the cooling rack right now is to get a little bit of air under there. You definitely don't want to take your cookies off immediately. They are too soft right now, but the longer they get exposed to the air for a minute or so, they will firm up and then we can transfer them. And I'm gonna go grab my spatula. Okay. All right, so these should be just about ready to be removed from the pan. So I'm going to move this right over here to my towel. And I'm going to put them one by one on the cooling rack. Now you'll see they're still going to be really floppy. If they are too floppy, it is too soon to move them. Also, you might be thinking to yourself, but how do I know when the cookie is done? So in this case, these are slightly golden brown around the edges, which is perfect. They are still pretty white in the middle, which means they'll be nice and chewy. Any darker, and they'll be kind of crispy. So if you like your cookies crispy, that's fine. I don't. I like them soft and chewy. All right. Okay. So it didn't fall into a million pieces or squish together, so this is just right to come off the pan. And looks like these are good to go. Alright, so you have yourself some chocolate chip cookies. I hope it gets you through the week, and have a great rest of the night.